Hey guys, Jester here. Today I'm going to be reading another fan fiction short story from Dragon Magazine 143. And this is a very interesting looking cover there. It looks like a fighter jet fighting a dragon, but in any case, don't let the cover fool you. This is a very good issue. Um, there are several articles in here that are very, very good in, what would you call it? Giving the dungeon master good tips and advice on how to create, run, design, whatever you will, his campaign. Okay. I'm just going to run down a list of a few of the articles here that do that. Page 13 is a view from the top. After you create a world, you have to run it. Page 14, And Nobody Knows But You, by Russell Droulard. What do the characters know about their world anyway? Page 22, Out of the Textbook into the Game, Eileen Lucas. Suppose the American Civil War had been fought with dwarves and elves. And that's not exactly what you would think it would be by the title, but very, very good article. Telling It Like It Is by Thomas Kane. A DM can make or break an adventure from the moment he opens his mouth. The Highs and Lows of Fantasy, Paul Hancock. Which is better, the gold or the glory? You need the answer, and soon. And there's more. But it's just this is the one issue where, in my opinion, the entire book pretty much gave wonderful advice to the dungeon master, and just things that you may or may not think about. But in any case, but I'm not here to delve deep into that. If you want to pick up this from eBay or Etsy or something, again, it's issue 143, Dragon Magazine. But what we're going to be going over today is on page 55, fan fiction short story called The Other Option by Dylan Brody. And this is the artwork. Okay. So, get a sip of coffee here and we'll have at it. Alright. I broached the subject at last, feeling safe, as she had just read my latest poem and smiled and cried and loved it. She said, and a tiny pause told me there was something she decided not to say. Would love to. I love you, but you'll have to speak with my father before I may accept. This struck me as odd. Shoshana had never relied much on her father, nor had she respected his opinion on many things. I did not respect his opinion on any subject. The next morning brought me a messenger with an appointment to meet Valmata. I acknowledged, tipped the messenger, and dressed. A sparrow chirped with trepidation. I whistled agreement. It came to my windowsill to examine me. I chirped a greeting. It whistled delight and flew. Valmata met me in the gardens behind the temple. He shook my hand high up on the wrist in the manly way of warriors and hunters. I tried to offer an acceptably firm grip in response. A slight turn of his head as he released me told me I had not succeeded. I tried to remember the perfect and eloquent wording I had found in which to couch my request. I had been up half the night composing the phrases, and I was quite pleased with them. My hesitation, though brief, was too long. Shoshana has told me your proposal, Valmata said. I wish to tell you openly that I have no objection to this thing at a personal level. She tells me she loves you, and from what is said in town, I have come to believe that you love her as well. I think a marriage between you could prove lasting and blessed." I paused now, my timing thrown. Valmata had himself spoken eloquently, disarmingly so for one of his ilk, and while he had said nothing dissuasive or contrary, I could feel that there was something yet to come. Nor was I mistaken. "However, Loren, there is a Glim family tradition that must be upheld, one for which I am afraid you will not qualify without a trial." "A trial?" I asked before I'd framed the thought. "For what?" "A trial of courage and strength." He blew air between his teeth slowly, as if to relieve some inner pressure. "A trial of battle." He allowed a moment for his words to resound within me. Then he went on. "Every man who marries into our tree must first prove himself a man of heroic nature. As you know, I served in the Troll Wars under my father's command. My grandfather once single-handedly defended this town against 3 profiteering giants, and the tradition goes back for at least 10 generations beyond that. Before Mirlam was allowed to marry my sister Delangia, he was put through a trial. Also, my uncle Prela before he married Hale. Do you understand?" I understood his words. The implications astounded me. This family had always been known for its heroics. I had known that and had thought about the sorts of discomfort this might cause me in joining it. Ultimately, I had decided that, to spend the remainder of my life in the company and the arms of the woman I loved, it would be worth the small inconvenience of becoming related to people I could never view as equals and who could never view me as one in return. But to realize that the family's reputation had been maintained through deliberate and meticulous effort altered my whole view. More so, the fact that I was being asked to become one of them indeed before I could become one of them in title. I was angry. I was shocked. I was disillusioned. I was deeply offended. I was in love with Shoshana. I asked, "Whom do I have to fight?" "Whatever we can round up in time," he replied. "When would you like to be tried?" "Tomorrow," I stated. "Tomorrow?" I nodded. "Won't you want to get in shape first, train, meet with some hunters, some slayers, learn something of the crafts you'll need?" "Tomorrow." He nodded. My thinking was as follows. Valmata had said, "whatever," rather than "whomever." This meant he would be putting me up against one of the great beasts. I also remembered something about Mirlam having been a dragon slayer, which suggested that the dragon had been his trial. I hoped that by setting so near a deadline, I could maximize my chances of drawing a feeble opponent. Perhaps in only one day, the best they would be able to find would be a winged rodent, overgrown to look vaguely like a dragon, or perhaps a little manicore, easy to catch before it reached aggressive adulthood. My thinking by the time I was alone with Shoshana had changed considerably. "We can run away," I pled with her. "Tonight. Forget the tradition. We'll start a new family. Come away with me." "My Aunt Delangia warned me you would say this." "And?" "She said I must be strong, help you through your fear, not agree to run, not let you run." "Why? Come on, it won't be running away. It'll be running towards something, a new life." "I can't do that, Loran. You know that." "I know I could be killed tomorrow." She said nothing. "Wouldn't that mean anything to you?" "It would mean that you had not earned the right to wed me." I felt anger rise in me and thought to walk away then. But working against the impulse was the memory of her softness against me. The smell of her hair drifted to me, and the twin stars that danced within her eyes reminded me that she had read my words and understood my work. The poetry means nothing? I cursed myself for the near crack in my voice. Only killing an animal means something? There was pain in her eyes as she looked at me now, and I knew she believed her next words to be truth. "It will make us both stronger. I know you're frightened. I am too. There's a great deal we are both to learn from this. I can feel it." I remembered a night slightly warmer than this one. I had promised always to trust her feelings as much as my own, or as nearly so as I could manage. She had scolded me for this last as a disclaimer. I defended it, saying that I would never promise her that which I could not hope to fulfill. Then she had kissed me. And she kissed me now. then said, "I know you can do it," and she walked me back to the main road before we went our ways. As the sun was rising, I was surprised to find myself still in town, awake in time, and walking toward the site of my upcoming trial. I had not known that the arena could be used for private functions, but it was known that the Glim family had connections with the provincial lord as well as certain other lords in nearby areas. I entered the arena and found that Shoshana's family had already gathered on the green. Had not occurred to me to invite my family. I was glad. I walked to Valmata as boldly as I could and initiated a warrior's shake. I got it wrong, but his correction seemed to be an approval. That bothered me somehow. In addition to the family, I discovered the town recorder present, as well as a few other minor officials. I supposed they were there to verify the feat, though it is possible they had just come to watch. One of the many distant cousins, a man with a woolly beard and a scarlet face, offered me some strong wine. Taking the flask, I drew frowns from other family members and approval from a few. I quaffed. After a quick explanation of the procedure, the town recorder led the entire group into the stands. Once all the onlookers were safe and settled, the recorder shouted for the release of the beast. Two of the town guards, there were always town guards around the arena, cranked open a chute gate at the far end of the green. Once it was open, there was a pause. Then some movement in the shadows beyond the gate. The beast emerged. My chest constricted. My legs trembled. Oddly, I wondered if my fear was apparent from the stands. I decided the beast was pulling too much focus from anyone to notice. The eagle's head looked angry in the sharp crest of its beak. When it spread its wings, the span was at least thrice my height. Rippling under golden fur, the muscles of a cow-sized lion bunched nervously. I backed away a few steps as it emerged. I didn't even notice its claws then. It was really the beak that terrified me. I had climbed the northern mountains in my youth. I had seen the eagles there. I had learned their ways and their various calls. I had seen them prey on small animals. They used their beaks powerfully, rending, tearing, piercing. My vision locked on that beak and would not break free. It took a feline step toward me, the cat's tail twitching, the eagle's eye gleaming. I realized that I had not yet drawn the battle sword with which Valmata had supplied me. I was vaguely distressed to realize that my hand and arm were conspiratorially refusing to do so now. The frozen terror of nightmare gripped me walking. I took in the size of the beast before me like a scientist, estimating its mass in numb horror, pacing the rate of its massive approach against the steady rhythm of my overpounding heart. A voice spoke within me. "Men have done this," it told me. "The griffin can be killed," it said. A brief image of spurting blood weakened my knees. I pushed the thought from my mind. I decided to take one thing at a time. I forced my hand to move toward the sword. I knew that I was within range if it chose to swat at me with its paws. My hand was beginning to move. The creature tensed its muscly haunches. My hand was almost past my belt buckle. Rearing back, towering on its hind legs, the beast showed me its underbelly. This was my opportunity, but I could not snap into action. Only swiftness conquers size, and I was without swiftness, without feeling, detached now even from my own intellect. My inner voice was without words of reassurance. This monster would pierce and tear and rend me, and then it would eat me because I was a poet and had no place doing battle with it. The voice within me found new words, useless words. My own mind, filled with self-hatred and resentment, was composing the words of my epitaph. The griffin threw back its head and screamed, and fear left me. I knew the scream. It was an eagle's head. It had an eagle's mind. It was an eagle's scream. Louder, yes, but one I knew well. It was not a scream of anger. It was not a scream of hunger. The griffin screamed in confusion and despair. This was the scream of an eagle trapped, or falling from battle, broken, knowing its wings will not save it. I abandoned the effort to draw my sword. My back straightened. My right arm rose gently. The crowd watching grew tense. I opened my throat as I offered my palm. I spread my arms and called in the tones of a mother eagle comforting her frightened nestlings. The griffin screamed again. I called to it again. It cocked its head and cawed questioningly. I cried out. The volume was painful to my human throat. I screamed mother's comfort, catching at my own opponent's heart, calming its terror. Cooing, the griffin bent its neck and pecked at the ground. I moved toward it, shrieking a promise that we would find food, that there was some nearby. It raised its head and looked at me. I slowly moved toward it, screeching compassion the while. When I drew near it, it shied away, but I cooed at it, and at last the griffin pressed its huge feathered head against my chest. The force of its affection nearly knocked me from my feet. For a few moments I scratched the beast, cooing in its tickly ears. Then, grabbing a handful of feathers and comforting it continuously, I led the griffin over to the stands where the observers were. I expected cheers. I had accomplished the impossible. I had passed the test. Shoshana's family traded uncomfortable glances. Valmata whispered with the town recorder. Then the recorder spoke to me, loud enough for the crowd to hear. While we are not accustomed to the methods employed, it is merely the deed that is required by the traditional contract. For a moment I was filled with joy. Shoshana was to be my bride. All was to be well. He went on. All that remains, Lauren, suitor to Shoshana Glim, is that you slay the beast you have tamed. I shuddered at the words. I cannot, I shouted back. The griffin became nervous at the sound of my voice speaking the human tongue. I cooed at it again, and the griffin calmed at once. It should be easy now, the recorder told me. You have its trust. I looked to Shoshana and caught her bright eyes, excited by the scene, urging me on. Valmata offered only a tight nod. I turned and faced the griffin, my newfound friend. The beast turned its head to center me in one of its coal-black eyes. I patted it once on the leonine shoulder, then leapt astride its broad golden back. I screamed the eagle's scream of open skies. He responded at once to the suggestion. Powerful wings jolted us into the air with a gigantic push. 2 more beats, and we were well away, above the town and gliding free in bonded camaraderie. As we passed over Valmata's home, I dropped the sword he'd given me, deeply hoping it might break something he treasured. And that, my friends, ends the story. Another option. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell. And make sure you share with all your friends. Again, thanks for joining me on my channel and listening to me read these wonderful stories that fans sent in to Dragon Magazine. Come back next time, and I may be reading another story. I may be reviewing a product. Who knows? But until next time, and as always, see you soon.